Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we'll be unraveling the fascinating world of the Indian garment industry.
Should be interesting.
It definitely is. We'll be drawing insights from the latest Tecoya Trend issue, January 13th, 2025 to be exact. And we've got some other textile news as well that we'll try to weave into the conversation. So get ready, folks, as we're going to take a look at the industry's present state, some of the obstacles it's facing, and some really cool innovations that are on the horizon.
Sounds good.
So first off, the sheer scale of this industry is pretty mind-blowing.
It really is.
Tecoya Trend is reporting a retail market worth a whopping INR 5.4 lakh crore. That's like bigger than the entire GDP of a lot of countries.
Exactly. And this economic powerhouse translates to a ton of jobs. We're talking about an estimated 39 million people employed across the industry.
16 million of those jobs are in domestic production alone, which is pretty remarkable. And what's really interesting is that many of these jobs are vital opportunities in rural areas, especially for women who make up a large part of the workforce. Now, there's a pretty fascinating development happening within this massive industry. 14 garment associations across India have teamed up with the Clothing Manufacturers Association of India, the CMAI. They're coming together as a united front under the banner Group of Associations, One Industry, One Voice. Have you ever seen this level of collective action before?
Not really. It's pretty unprecedented. They're advocating for the interests of the industry, and one of their top concerns right now is a proposed change to the goods and services tax rates, the GST.
Ah, yes, the GST. So remind me again how those rates impact the garment industry.
Sure. So the GST is basically a consumption tax that's levied at various points of production and sale. Any changes to these rates directly affect the final price of clothing. The industry is worried that this proposed hike could really disrupt manufacturing and pricing throughout the entire supply chain.
Okay, I see. So what are the garment associations saying about this? Are they simply against any change, or is there more to their argument?
They've actually outlined a few specific concerns. Their main point is that increasing the GST on garments is going to make clothes less affordable, especially for items like festive and wedding attire. This could have a ripple effect on consumer demand. People might buy fewer clothes or even turn to those informal, unregulated markets where quality and ethical standards could be compromised.
Right, that makes sense. We all know how inflation is hitting everyone's wallet these days. Making clothes more expensive is bound to have an impact.
Absolutely. And the industry also worries that this GST hike would really hit smaller businesses the hardest. These MSMEs often operate on super tight margins, and they might not be able to handle those extra costs.
So it sounds like the industry isn't just complaining, they're actually looking for solutions. What are they proposing as an alternative to the GST rate hike?
Well, they've put forward 5 key recommendations to the government. Some of them are pretty insightful.
Interesting. Let's hear them.
Okay, so first off, they're calling for the GST rate change to be completely scrapped. That's their most direct demand.
Makes sense. What else?
Secondly, they're suggesting a special production-linked incentive scheme, a PLI scheme. This one would be specifically designed for garment manufacturers. They argue that the existing PLI scheme, which is for the broader textile industry, doesn't really fit their operational needs and investment capacity.
Wouldn't creating a separate scheme just create more bureaucracy?
That's a valid concern, and I'm sure the government will be considering that. They're also advocating for better protection of smaller businesses, especially in cases where a larger company might go bankrupt. They want to avoid a domino effect that could wipe out a bunch of smaller suppliers.
Yeah, that seems fair. It's about leveling the playing field for everyone.
For sure. And they're also raising concerns about a specific income tax rule, Section 43BH. They claim this section puts smaller garment makers at a disadvantage, and they think it needs some adjustments for fairness.
It's fascinating how these small tax regulations can have such a big impact. So what's their last recommendation?
Okay. Their final suggestion is for interest subsidies to help domestic garment businesses grow. This idea is based on a successful program that's already in place for exporters.
Well, that's encouraging. If it worked for exporters, maybe it could work domestically.
Right. It suggests that the government recognizes the value of local industries and might be open to policies that have been successful in other areas.
So it's really great to see the industry having this constructive dialogue with the government and actually proposing solutions instead of just pointing out the problems. This whole conversation around the GST and the industry's recommendations really highlight how vital this sector is to India's economy. But it's not all about policy debates and economic forecasts, right? There's also this really cool cultural shift happening in the Indian garment industry, and Tecoya Trend really captures that.
Oh, you mean the resurgence of Khadir?
Yeah, exactly. Remember India's Vocal for Local initiative? Well, khadi seems to be riding that wave, becoming more than just fabric.
Yeah, for sure. It's always been special in India, but it's definitely having a moment.
Tecoya Trend has a quote from the Uttar Pradesh chief minister. He talks about how local products, and especially khadi, are replacing imported stuff, especially during festivals. What do you think about this trend?
I think it's a great example of how cultural values and economic choices can really come together. Consumers are more and more drawn to products that reflect their identity and heritage, and khadi just embodies that perfectly. It represents self-reliance and local craftsmanship and a connection to India's history.
And get this, Tecoya Trend reports that the khadi sector alone has created something like 350,000 jobs in the last 7 years. It's more than just a feel-good story. It's a real economic boost. So what do you think is driving this renewed interest in khadi?
I think it's a few things. The government has been doing a lot to promote traditional crafts and industries, and that's helped. But I also think consumers are just more aware of sustainability and ethical production now. And khadi fits right in there. It's hand-spun and hand-woven using natural fibers. It's like a sustainable alternative to mass-produced fabrics.
It's really interesting how things have changed. In the past, khadi was associated with being simple, maybe
Yeah.
even austere. But now it's like a symbol of conscious consumerism and cultural pride.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just fabric anymore, it's a statement. And this whole sustainability trend isn't just in India either. It's a global thing. And there are some amazing innovations happening all over the world, really pushing the boundaries.
Oh, speaking of innovation, Tecoya Trend highlights this partnership that I thought was super cool. It's between this U.S.-based company called Ambercycle and a Chinese company called Benma. They're working together to develop something called Sycora. Have you heard of it?
Oh, yeah. Sakura is making waves in the textile world. It's a circular polyester fiber. And the coolest part is it's made completely from textile waste.
I know, right? It's a total game changer. It tackles so many issues at once. Like, for one, it reduces our need for virgin resources, which is huge for the environment.
Definitely. Conventional polyester production uses a lot of resources and isn't great for the environment. Sakura offers a much more sustainable option.
And then there's the whole problem of textile waste. It's crazy how many clothes end up in landfills every year.
It's a massive problem for sure. But Secor provides a solution by turning that waste into something valuable. It's a perfect example of circularity closing the loop and reducing our need for new raw materials.
And the best part is Secret doesn't compromise on quality at all. It's a high-performance fiber that can be used for all kinds of clothes.
That's so important. Sustainability can't be about sacrificing quality or style. People want eco-friendly clothes that look good and last. And Sikora does all of that.
And Tecoya Trend says that the demand for decarbonized polyester is expected to hit 7 million metric tons by 2026. That's a huge market, and this partnership seems perfectly placed to meet that demand.
It does. They've got a great combination. Ambercycle has this cutting-edge technology to regenerate textile waste, and then Ben Mama has all this manufacturing power. I'm excited to see how they scale up production to keep up with the demand for sustainable materials.
It's pretty amazing to see how innovation and collaboration are like reshaping the global textile landscape. From India's GST debate to the comeback of khadi and the potential of circular textiles like Sycora, we've covered a lot today.
Yeah, we have. You know what really stands out to me is how connected everything is. The choices we make as consumers, the policies governments put in place, and the new things companies develop, it all has like a ripple effect.
Absolutely. And it's clear that the Indian garment industry is at a really crucial point. It's facing some tough challenges, but it's also embracing these new chances for growth and sustainability and innovation.
Yeah, and that makes me think, with the rise of circular textiles and this growing preference for local products like khadi, how do you think the fashion landscape is going to change in the next few years? What role will technology play? Or consumer demand? What about government policies? How will all of that shape the future of the clothes we wear?
That's a really interesting question. And you know what? We've included some links in the show notes so you can explore those ideas further. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the amazing world of textiles.